in sales, you'll get given a disc questionnaire to fill out, and as long as you're
Why? Then you can actually move along this curve, right? Because you sense what's needed in this particular situation. And if my why is clear and there's a burning desire in my heart, then I understand that this particular situation requires me.
emotional reasons. What a good marketer does is it actually works out what goes on in sales calls. They'll listen to sales calls or they'll speak to salespeople.
Hi, everyone. I am Mina Baselyous from Pinnacle Accounting and Advisory. And today we have the honor of having Lee Marshall with us. Lee is a sales professional and a sales leader. Over to you, Lee, to introduce yourself further and tell us about yourself and your background.
Love the word honor, Mina. That makes me feel really appreciated. So I do. Yeah, thank you so much. Um, Look, I could talk about this forever, but I'll keep the story very, very short. I graduated university in 2013 over in England, and after ironically applying for a couple of graduate jobs as an accountant, which of course Mina's profession, I got rejected from roles without even getting put in front of companies or the hiring manager, automated responses. I decided to fly over to Australia with a little over $5,000 in my bank account. At the age of 23, that doesn't last very long, especially when you're living in a nice city like Melbourne. And I quick had to find some jobs and some jobs that were going to pay for my lifestyle. Sydney's an expensive place. So who's always hiring? And it's always people hiring in sales. So at the age of 22, I contacted a company, an insurance company that were hiring a very, very heavy rate and spent 5 years working for them. That was purely outbound. So we're talking 100 to 150 cold calls each and every day with some pretty strong sales targets. So thrown in the deep end, mainly fell in sales because it wasn't my dream job. I wanted to become a financial advisor, ironically. That's what I'm sort of learning to do now. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Okay. Mate, why do salespeople get a bad rap?
There's a few different responses to this, and I'll go through them and I'll get your opinion on them, Mina. The first,
Putting you to the bus here, mate.
yeah, I was going to say,
Asking,
what you said about me?
asking the hard questions.
Yeah. Why do we get a bad rap? I'm a nice guy. Look, this can happen for multiple different reasons. The first, social programming. I'm a big believer, whatever you tell your children will resonate as a child, will resonate them as an adult. And each parent will tell their children, don't speak to salespeople, they're evil. Don't answer their questions, they're going to manipulate you, they're going to twist you. We've all got those stories, and we remember those stories of when we walk into somewhere like a DVD shop with your father. And you walk in them, you're age 8 or 9, you're walking hand in hand, and they're looking to buy a new TV or a DVD player. Anyway, your father's asking all the questions. Does it come with this? Does it offer that? Does it play in this resolution? And quite often, your father will then say to the salesperson, think it over. They'll walk out the shop and they'll say, oh, so you're going to think about it, Daddy? You're going to go back tomorrow? And I go, no, I just lied to them. I just lied to them to get rid of them. And that sits with salespeople. That sits with people when they go into adults and they're receiving sales calls. They think this person's just going to twist and manipulate me. What are your thoughts, Mina?
My thoughts are salespeople can be a bit pushy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I think sales is, well, mate, I was going to ask you, what is sales ultimately? And you sort of moved us into that question. But to be honest, I was hoping you to answer it.
Yeah.
But you sort of did a reverse on me here. You,
What a good salesperson does, right? So crack the
yeah, that's what I was
question.
going to say, mate. You started selling to me, mate. You're trying to qualify me.
So, people need to understand how and why people buy to ever think about sales, right? And no matter what you're purchasing, whether it's an apple or a house or a business, people will always buy with emotion. They'll justify it with logic. When they're doing this, they're trying to achieve one or two things, to move away from pain or move towards pleasure. Now, anyone that trades within the stock market or gambles will know that the fear of loss is always much greater, usually by times of two, than the fear of gain. So, a lot of businesses are trying to move away from pleasure. The salesperson's job in that role is to try and highlight that problem and solve that problem for them. A business may come to you with a specific issue. The salesperson is to qualify that issue, but also shine some light on how that could be done better. They can come to the conclusion that it's not for that particular company, or it is for that particular company. But it's all about asking the right questions, not trying to get the prospect to change their mind necessarily, not trying to push your agenda, not trying to manipulate them, but experiencing that journey with them, understanding them, showing a bit of empathy, and also shining some light on how things could be done better. Well, this is where a lot of salespeople actually go wrong. And this is, if we go back to the previous question, this is why a lot of salespeople are hated. Quite often, a prospect will ask you to join a meeting, they'll book a link in your calendar, or they'll do whatever they do these days to get in front of you, and they'll come with a specific issue. And the first thing a salesperson will do is they'll upload to the Teams meeting, or they'll go into the meeting with a bunch of slides of 47 deck slides saying, this is our company, this is our company history, these are our founders, this is our mission values, this is why we're the best, these are the case studies, this is why everyone uses us, this is why our price is the best. And it gets mentally draining for prospects. What your job is to do is actually ditch the slides. I don't use them at all, and I haven't used slides for ages. It's just to ask the questions. What's the problem? How long has it existed? Why are you trying to fix it? Why now? What else have you done? Why hasn't that worked? Why don't you just give up? And all these types of questions that will actually help them come to an answer. I'm not sure if you ever heard, Mina, of something called the IKEA curve.
Oh, mate, I might have come across it, but I can't remember what it is. Can you tell us about it?
So the IKEA curve is a key fundamental of what you need to be doing in sales. People will always value things that they've built themselves more than what someone else has built for them, right? So if you look at IKEA, when you ever get and I used to do this a lot in my early 20s. I had to furnish a flat, and you've got to put a sofa together, a bed together, and you're looking at all the pieces. Like, we've got 78 pieces here. It says it's going to take me 20 minutes. I bet I'm here 4 hours later. And you build the sofa or you build the bed, and you're really, really proud of yourself afterwards. What you'll do is you'll take a photo and you'll send it to your mother, or you'll tell your mates, or you'll put it on the internet. Oh, look what I've just done, right? And that's a key fundamental into sales as well. If you can help the prospect build their ideal future and move away from that nasty past that they've got, they're much, much more likely to be proud of what they've achieved and go ahead with you as the vendor.
Mm, mm. You touched up on IKEA. I don't think IKEA is about, furniture. I think it's about taking the customer on experience.
Yep.
It's like it's like Lego on steroids. Working with your pieces. I honestly think they just make different shapes and different way to put things in or stick them together just to entertain you. Buying furniture, it's like an entertainment experience, and it's either you get it wrong or you get it right.
It is.
And the instructions aren't that clear sometimes, so there's still an element of, oh, I hope this actually works. But yeah, I think you're right. I think putting it together is gives you a great sense of achievement. And you know what? It actually makes me think about something, right? So, as someone who's an advisor, I've been taught that I'm not the hero in my client's journey. They're the hero. I am a coach. I am a guide, helping them to achieve that what they want, right? Which what you touched upon is either reducing fear or reducing discomfort or maximizing pleasure,
Yep.
right? That's what ultimately the journey is about. It's about amazing that amazing story. Person's got the girl, or they got this particular thing, or they beat the evil person, whatever Hollywood throws at us, right? Um, so yeah, I love that you mentioned that, mate. What else? What else can you tell us? There's
I want
yeah,
to go back to the first point of the negative connotations, because this is something that you really have to get your head around as a salesperson of why these exist. And if you can get your head around it, it makes your chance of success much more likely.
yeah,
people that don't work in sales don't truly understand what goes in it, and they have these feelings or these thoughts or what they've been told as a child still resonating with them as an adult, as in they're evil, they're going to twist you, they're going to manipulate you, whatever their parents told them. And then they hit the age of 18 or 19 and they start watching films that are age 18 or whatever, and they start looking at stuff like The Wolf of Wall Street or The Boiler Room, or they look at very predominant in the UK. I don't know if we have a version over here, but The Apprentice, and sort of, I think that was Donald Trump, wasn't it, in the US? And you look at how some of these salespeople act and behave, and it's everything that you see or you hear from as a child is reinforced into your brain because of these films. Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort manipulated people to buy stocks that they didn't need and or didn't understand, um, as well as a bunch of other illegal things. You look at The Apprentice, and they're throwing, I don't know, sausages or steaks onto a barbecue and trying to throw it down people's throats. There's no question, there's no qualifying. All they're trying to do is sell, 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 features, benefits, features, benefits. So even on TV, even on films, these negative connotations still run through the industry and run through salespeople. And quite often, so many times on sales calls, I've heard, Lee, why are you doing things a little bit differently? Why aren't you pushing me? Why are you giving me the opportunity to say no? Because that's how you gain trust, you
Yeah.
know?
And look, my experience with you has actually been great, right? You're actually a very chatty person. You build a relationship. You do ask questions. You can be a bit pushy sometimes, Lee, but it's a good form of pushy. I think just to touch up on the whole fear or pleasure thing, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It might sound wrong, right? But I need to highlight, for example, to an accountant that, hey, if you do a tax return or if you do financials in a certain way, it will trigger an audit. And there are strong repercussions that come with an audit. And I know because we had someone recently who was not a client actually. They got an ATO letter. They did the tax return themselves. They got an ATO letter for an audit. And I'll tell you what, the audit has been horrendous, right? So if I had to communicate to someone, this is what's going on and these are the repercussions. It's not just about fear. It's about truly communicating to them something can go wrong. And as professionals, we are here to help remove that pain so you can focus on what's important to you, right? And you can avoid all that suffering. Because mate, it's a painful process, I have to admit.
Especially if someone thinks they're no different, right? But if you can, and what you're doing there, I mean, and what you're doing in terms of the sales process, you probably realize this, but um, the cost of an action,
Mm.
it's a huge
Cost
part
of an
of
action. Yeah.
it's a huge part of selling and
Yeah.
and what you're looking to do, right? Because whether you like it or not, both you, I, and every other business going out here is moving from A to B, regardless of that journey.
Mm.
And when a salesperson may contact them or speaking to a salesperson, they're thinking in their heads, well, I'm actually getting along fine already. Now, let's say you're selling or you're offering financial advice services, for an example. Someone might think, actually, I'm doing really well with my investing. I made 8% last year. I was really happy with my returns. It made me $15,000 or whichever it could have been. But you shine a light on what the financial advisor achieved, and they might have achieved 15%. So they might have got a double the return. They might charge, I'd say, 1 to 2% for their fees, of course. So it might be that you are adding extra fees to what you're currently doing, but you're also missing out on a huge opportunity by doing what you're doing. And it's shining that light. What are you doing now? What is the cost of you staying the same? And if you were to change, how much benefit would that give you? A lot of salespeople, a lot of people in business don't actually look at it like that. And that's exactly what you've got to do with the prospect. You've got to get them to work that out in their own heads. You can help
Mm.
them, you can guide them, you can ask the questions. But if they can't do that, and there's no compelling reason or urgency to why they would actually move forward.
Yeah. So cost of inaction,
Cost of inaction.
opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost, as we say in economics.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
opportunity cost. Uh, so again, I'm just going to touch up on something, which is the whole fear and pleasure thing. I think you can come across as very authentic if you actually care about the person, right? So you can communicate the exact same thing. I am removing your chances of getting an audit, right? And it sounds authentic because you truly care about the person. You've got your values right. Now, someone who's just trying to push someone into something, they're going to sound disingenuous. They're going to sound like they don't actually care. They're just trying to push you through something, and that's it for their own gain, and that's it. They don't care about about me actually. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say salespeople are very, very, I would say good because it's not a good practice, but they quite often push for their own agenda. And really, when you look at it, it comes down to multiple reasons. A, they have terrible money beliefs. Most salespeople are skint or they get their commission check and it goes on a BMW, right? And they don't understand how money works or how to make the most of their money. So therefore, they have to keep chasing that money and they get addicted to the outcome. Also, sales is one of the, if not the only, and I'm going to effectively slag myself off a little bit here. It's one of the only jobs where there isn't any training, right? You become an accountant, Mina, right? You have to, as an accountant, you have to go to university. Then you have to join a company. You have to do your CPA, your CPA. You get a mentor in the company. If you join a big four or a mid-tier firm, you're going through constant CPD and constant training.
Mate, we
Sales,
all do. We've got at least 20 hours, at least CPD. That's probably from one organization. Then you've got all
and
these other
that's
things. Yeah,
even more when you're a graduate. I know you might not
absolutely.
call it CPD, but how much on the job training are you getting? It's every day, right? Continuous, continuous, continuous. In sales, you'll get given a disc questionnaire to fill out, and as long as you're high D and I, that you're half attractive and can put a suit on, and you smile, you are qualified. You are a salesperson. Off you go. Here's your laptop. Here's your CRM. You go crush it. And there isn't any training on it. So what a lot of salespeople do because they fall into it and because they don't really care about themselves, they don't care about the job. They know they can find another sales job. Ask any 15-year-old in a classroom, what do you want to be when you grow up? No one's going to say salesperson. They're going to say fireman, accountant, lawyer, whatever it's going to be, right? Um, they don't really care about what they do. So when they're actually doing their sales job, all they're thinking about is, I actually don't want to be here. I don't care about it. I can pick up another job just like that. And I know if I convince enough people or do enough of the wrong behavior, someone will buy from me and I'll get a commission check, which is wrong. We need to be looking at how do we make this person happy? How do we make them comfortable? What problem are we going to solve? How can we shine our light on the problem that can be done better? And once you do all those things, the money follows.
Mm, And that's how to be effectively ethical in sales.
I know that as a long answer, but
That's a,
it's
it's a good answer. You touched up on DISC. Can you tell us what DISC is?
DISC is much like Myers-Briggs. You're
Yes.
looking at someone's personality trait.
Yeah. So
And
my
if
understanding is DISC is dominant, influential,
you
right?
compliant,
I'm getting a bit of help here. Okay. S is steady, and C is compliant,
yeah.
right? So tell us more a little bit about that and where you think I stand and where do you think you stand and can we change? Can we change?
Any professional has to change in any job, has to. And if we actually look at doctors are the best at this, right? Because if you ever look at a doctor and the way they act and behave, lawyers are really good at this as well. Quite often they don't show any personality, right? You walk into the room, especially a GP, you walk into the room, they've got a set list of questions, they make you feel very comfortable, and they go through those questions and they're asking other questions based on the answers that you've given. They could be the most extroverted person in the room or the most extroverted person you know, but you'll never ever notice because they've trained themselves to act and behave in a certain way. Now, I think with salespeople, your one qualification is to be extroverted. You do the disc profile, hit high I or high in D, and you look okay and you can communicate well. And that is your qualification, and you are a salesperson. But, and this is something that I had to learn very, very hard, and I'm still learning to this day, is to be able to shut up and listen because your job isn't actually to talk someone into something, it's to listen to their problems and react accordingly. So, as an example, if you're doing, if you're selling something like, I don't know, say something like sales training and you're trying to convince and manipulate this person that you are the best sales trainer known to man, but they're at 300% of their target, what is the point? Right? They've hit their targets, they've got everything they need and want, right? You need to find out what that problem is and the people that are struggling. So yes, people do have to change. It's part of being a professional. People that have to change. Sales people don't quite often realize that they have to change. I don't know how it works in accountancy world, but that's something that I feel very, very strongly about. From my point of view, and working closely with accounting practices, quite often they're very high on the S, they're very high on the C. They're great attention to detail. They know the tax laws inside out. They're very, very well educated, very intelligent people, but they need to insert themselves a bit more. Quite often, I think accountants can get walked over. They're walked over in terms of the fees. They get walked over in terms of prospects. They give up way too much time for free. Um, and sometimes they'll say yes to absolutely anyone. Really, that's not good business. You don't want to be saying yes to everyone.
Mm.
What you want to be doing is getting paid on your terms, your rates, your fees. You want to be getting paid for the right people and working comfortable hours. We don't want to be working 80 hours a week for, very, very little money. So
Mm.
I think that's where accountants very, very good in the S, very good, very high on the C. But they need to learn to change a little bit and become a bit more dominant, a bit more influential.
Oh, mate, some really good insight there. So, how do you think they can do that? I want to ask you another question, but uh, this has been interesting. You made some interesting comments there. I want to get your thoughts.
How would you get good at it? It's very tough because if you look at your average accounting firm, if we look at the mid-tier firms, which is where accountants generally drift to after their university's degree, sometimes they go to top four. A lot of those people that they need to learn from are stuck behind boardrooms and offices because they're the ones the partners of these firms, that they're the ones that are very good at these skills. But quite often it's difficult to learn from them because you don't get their time. You're palmed off to a supervisor or a team leader that doesn't quite understand it. So really, but no, I think you got something to say there.
Yeah, I was going to say they're a technician. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the E-myth,
Yeah.
but Michael E. Gerber mentions technician, manager, and entrepreneur, right? So a lot of times they're pushed into being the technician, actually doing the job. Keep going. Sorry, it's very fascinating.
So the average accountant won't ever get the soft skill training that they require. Technically, to get along in their job, they don't need a lot of soft skills because tax needs to be paid, compliance needs to be done, BASs need to be lodged. I always think accountants are going into an industry that is a little bit recession proof, pretty much all recession proof, let's be honest. And therefore they don't have to work on their sales skills. But if they did, it would make their life a hell of a lot easier. Ways to do it. I actually know an accountant here in Sydney who spent thousands of dollars in his professional development on sales training. Someone that I've spoke to many, many a time, and he's flourished for it. He says, I pick up a lot of work that other accountants can't just because I can communicate myself better. A lot of accountants will have that negative connotation that salespeople, I don't want to do that. I don't want to push my product. But if they can get to what the fundamental of what sales is, and I'm hoping this video can actually help them with that, then perhaps they can realize all they're trying to do is help people. And if they can help the right people, they can get the right fee and they can live a much happier life.
Mm, mm. Mate, where do you think I lie on the disc profile?
I think this would be some good branding for you, my friend. I think you could change your branding to the extroverted accountant. Because they do exist. I've worked within a mid-tier account or just lower than mid-tier accounting firm. That's how I started my job within this industry, or started my role within this industry. And 99% of the people were dead quiet. And you're much louder, you're much more endearing as well. But you've got that personality to go with it. And extroverted accountants will always, it's a huge, huge opportunity because if all your competitors or the rest of the industry is doing one thing and you do the other thing, then you're the one that's going to stand out.
Mm. Mate, thank you very much for those very, very kind words. I really do appreciate it. I'm not paying him to say any of this, okay? He's saying it of his free will, right? Um, I want to let you know that I'm actually an introvert in my heart of hearts, and I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but it goes back to a conversation I actually had with a business owner earlier today, before we did this recording. And it's about you can be an introvert, but you can still be very good at sales. We will touch up on that a little bit later on. But ultimately, if you are aligned with your why, then you can actually move along this curve, right? Because you sense what's needed in this particular situation. And if my why is clear and there's a burning desire in my heart, then I understand that this particular situation requires me to be more talkative. This particular situation requires me to be like a lawyer or a GP or an advisor where I just listen, ask questions, gentle probing that's beneficial to the person that I am working with, right? Or the person that's in front of me. I don't have to be working with them. It just be used in relationships, right? But you've got to go in and you've got to value the person who's in front of you. You've got to have respect for that person who's in front of you. You've got to really want what's best for them. And so that's how you can shift. And I think the best CEOs know how to do that very, very well. They know how to shift between being the person who's dominant, this is what we're going to do, and the person who's more collaborative and asks the team, what do you think we need to do? Because you also need to ask the team to get their buy-in and to sense how they feel. And the CEOs don't know everything, because if they know everything, they would have just been doing things themselves, right? But it's about working together with everyone. Over to you. Any comments on that?
Uh, how I got into disc profile. This is an interesting story, and I could unpack exactly what you said there. Loads of different things. But how I got into disc profile was actually a previous employer, and I was put into a head of sales role. Um, my job was to build a sales team, and I was by far the youngest person. I like to think I'm still fairly young now, but I was by far the youngest person within this company that is in the management position. It must have been about 15 managers, and we did a year-long leadership workshop, which was very, very interesting, very exciting, actually. I really enjoyed it. And the first thing we did was a disc profile.
Mm,
And then we all lined up extrovert versus introvert. And there was other things that we looked at in terms of like time management or the way that you communicate. And you'd line yourselves up. So extrovert would sit at one end of the room and introvert at the other end of the room. And what you found is all the salespeople, all the marketers, all the people that were in the media, the leadership, the big leaders, all of them were down the extrovert line. Look down the other end, and you've got the accountants. The CFO was at the bottom, as you can imagine, right? The person that needs the attention to detail, the person that actually sees how the business is running from a financial point of view, that sees potential opportunities moving forward because of the finances. Where are we doing well? Where's the highest margins? What else could we do in that market? This particular company offered solutions to both accounting and advisors. There was a lot of a lot of backleg work that had to be done in terms of the research and how we were all getting paid. It was really interesting. I never thought about it like this, but to actually have, when you're looking at a bigger company, bigger companies than what we work for at the moment, you need to have that mix of people because everyone brings a different skill set. I'm what's called a blue sky thinker, so I'll quite often come up with these amazing, massive, big ideas. But I need someone to come drag me down. I need someone to say, "Do you know what, Lee? Have you thought about this? What about the cost?" And those sort of things. So I think to get a team to work, you need to have a good mix of them. If you're in a startup company, like I don't know how many staff you've got. I mean, here we've got 7 or 8. And I'll still classify that as a startup. Yeah, everyone within that company has to do about 10 different jobs. And therefore, that's where it's really important to adapt.
mm,
Um, as part of my role here, I'm the cold caller. I do the sales meetings, I do the marketing, I do the email campaigns. I give the feedback, of course, to the directors. And you've got to wear loads of different hats. And I think that you have to be adaptable on those 4 things.
Adaptability and flexibility are, I think, are usually underrated. They're very, very, they're amazing skills, right? Be able to switch. But I think specialization is also important. But being able to recognize when something needs to be done and the type of character that's required of it is, I think, very important. So another question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, go.
How do we link, or what is the link between sales and marketing?
I think, and I've worked in these organizations, right? And I think I'll quash this one out first before I go into that. I absolutely despise and hate the fact that sales and marketing don't get on with each other. It's and this is probably in larger firms that we currently work for, right? But quite often they'll argue with each other because their work is affected by each other.
I did not expect you to say that at all. Wow.
Okay, so and I'll give you an example. A marketer might do a campaign and it might bring in 1,000 leads. That marketer then goes into the managing director, goes, look at how amazing I've done this job. I've brought in all these leads. Then the salesperson may look at these leads and think, well, we've got these contact details of these people.
Hmm.
We've got 1,000 contacts. Only 5% of them are in decision-making mode, so they can make decisions. We've got loads of contacts, but they're not CEOs, not CFOs, they're not director level. They're all mid-level managers who don't hold a company credit card, so it's pointless, right? So we've only actually got 50 leads. Now, out of those 50 leads, only 10% of them have given us their phone number. So we've actually only got five. And out of those five, we've called them all, and we didn't really get anywhere. That could be the salesperson's fault, of course. I'm always one to blame salespeople and blame myself if something does go wrong. But yes, so there's in this argument, the salesperson will go to the same manager director and say, well, out of that, we've only got these results, yada yada yada. And it's just the manager director will go, we spent 30 grand putting it together. We've paid for the head of marketing's salary. And you've got this massive argument that happens internally. And therefore, the sales team don't like the marketing team don't like the sales team. Sales and marketing are very, very similar things. A marketer's job is to get leads in front of the salesperson. They don't have to be qualified leads. That's the salesperson's job to do so, work out who's right, who's wrong. But that is their job. A lot of the marketing follows bad salespeople. So a lot of bad marketing follow bad salespeople. So what I mean by that is uh, a lot of marketers like to talk up their product, their solution. Accountants are brilliant at this, and I don't mean that in a good way. You look at the average accountant website. I'm qualified in this. I've had this many years experience. And they're talking about all the reasons why someone should buy from them, logical reasons, not emotional reasons. What a good marketer does is it actually works out what goes on in sales calls. They'll listen to sales calls or they'll speak to salespeople. And when you've listened to enough sales calls or you've spoken to salespeople, most prospects will say the same thing. So if you were to look at someone like who requires financial advice and you listen to a financial advice sales call, it'll all be around clarity. It'll be around the future. It'll be around the fact that they don't know where they're going, the fact they've got these goals but don't know how to get there. They feel like they're spending too much on this. And it's the marketer's job to take those things and put it into relatable content. And not say, if you got an email from a financial advice company, say, we are the best, we're a market leader, we've got an AFSL. It's more so around what would a prospect be feeling before they contact a financial advisor. What are those feelings? How do we document them? How do we get the message across? Can we tell a little bit of a story? And that really is a marketer's job. So I think the two marketers and salespeople need to work a hell of a lot closer together. It would be really handy if marketers sat in on sales meetings so they see what would go on, and vice versa for sales and marketing. I think without working together, you end up with a story like I just told. They happen all the time, and you end up with rubbish content.
What do you think should be communicated for accounting clients?
Problems. What are the
Like,
what are the problems? So, what is someone experiencing before they contact you, Mina? Now, something I hear loads of in this industry, and it's something that I'm big on, and you've probably heard this as well, is my accountant is not a partner; they're just a processor, right? So you need to unpack what that actually means first and foremost in the sales call. But from a marketing point of view, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that the accountant is very transactional. They might lodge the BAS, they'll do the annual return, they'll do the compliance, they'll do the payroll, they might do a bit of bookkeeping, and off they go. Right? That's not what people want from accountants anymore. They want someone who's going to look at that and interpret the data, and they're going to look at a forward plan. They want to work towards goals with them. A lot of these business owners, they're not just running business to get grey hair. They're doing it because they've got a personal goal they want to achieve. For example, it could be buy a Ferrari, could be retire at 60, it could be travel more, it could be have a safety net for their kids, it could be a mixture of all those things. So it's about getting to know that person personally, tying those personal attributes and those goals into their business and working out how the hell you get them there. This is where accountants can do really well if they I might be pushing my own agenda a bit here, but if they partner with the right financial advisor, um, because an accountant and a financial advisor can then team up together, provide the accurate advice based on their license, and provide that solution to them to make sure they hit those goals. Not only hit them, but actually exceed them.
I think absolutely. I think I do ask clients, do you have an accountant? And some say, yes, I had an accountant previously. And I should ask them, saying, why are you looking to change accountants? I'm not shy about that. And a lot of the time they say is they don't give us advice. And then I try to ascertain, what does that mean? Are they saying they don't complete a tax return, or are they saying they don't look at, say, as a starting point, the tax return, and say, okay, well, you could potentially rearrange your loan in this particular way. You can potentially look at buying an investment property. Why are you looking to reduce your tax? What are you looking to do with your wealth? What's important to you, right?
Yep.
What kind of advice do you need? And a lot of the time, it's more about clarity, reducing tax. Why do you want to reduce tax? Because we might want to go on more holidays. We might want to set the kids up. We want to buy a Porsche, Ferrari, or we want to make sure we repay down our loan. Or we want to have time back. We want to have some financial freedom, right? Okay. Well, these are the legal ways to manage these types of things. I'll connect you with a financial advisor. I'll connect you with a mortgage broker. I'll connect you with a lawyer. So listening in and finding out when a partnership can happen. And I love that you mentioned that financial advisor working with an accountant. We are effectively their board of advisors, right? Their board of advisors. Is there anything you reckon I missed?
Um, I mean, I could talk about this topic for ages, but no, that's hit the nail on the head. But what a lot of people got to realize to actually understand these things is how do you understand what a client really wants?
Mm,
Questions,
mm,
right? And people are very, especially accountants, because of their high S and high C profile, they get very uncomfortable asking questions. And to get these real answers, you have to ask a lot of questions,
mm,
right? It's not just why do you want to change accountant? It goes much, I think you sort of touched on it, it goes much deeper than
mm,
that. You're trained as a child not to ask questions, but only to answer them. So a lot of people, and if you think about this, right, Mina, you walk down the street with your son or your daughter, right? And you say, "What colour is that door? What number is that house?" And they get the right answer. You start giving positive affirmation. They're in the school, and the same thing happens. You go to the doctors and they say, "Don't ask any questions, just answer them." And so you're taught that as a child. So a lot of people don't like asking questions or making asking tough questions, and accountants need to ask those tough questions to
mm.
understand where the client is. The best accountants then provide that strategic advice. They have less clients, but they earn more because they've got the sort of clients that they want to attract, the high fee earners, the ones that appreciate their advice, and the ones that are 10 times more likely to then give them a referral.
Mm. Some people actually hate me because
Mhm.
apparently I ask a lot of questions. So what I've learned over the time is to say, I'm going to ask you some questions, but these questions are needed. They're being asked to make sure I understand what is important to you. So then I can provide you the advice to guide you and help you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And when I phrase it like that, people are a lot more relaxed, they're a lot more open, and they realize that I'm actually here on their team and to help them out. I think a lot of people sometimes feel uncomfortable about being asked question after question after question. I think it's a sort of like a defensive mechanism that we have.
Interrogation.
Yep, it's like an interrogation. But if the right person who cares about you is asking the questions and you're having a conversation at the end of the day, right? They're gently probing and they're guiding you. We're here to guide. We're not here to push people, right? And to make a recommendation if they ask us to ultimately make a recommendation. I think advisory services need to be about the pros and cons of a matter. I see a lot of accountants actually push people towards one thing or another. And an example of that is, oh, a company will save you all this amount on tax. A trust is going to save you all this amount on tax. Not necessarily. There's pros and cons of going this, of doing this, and there's pros and cons of doing that. What are the factual circumstances relating to the client? What are they looking to achieve? And then one or either of those will be beneficial to them. It might be a combination of that. I'm just giving you this as an example, right? But an advisor will explain the pros and cons of various options, and then ultimately they will make a recommendation which best fits what the client needs are.
Yep, exactly right. And to explain what's happening in your when you're asking those questions, people feel like they're getting interrogated, right? And people will soon close down, right? There's a thing called the zone of resistance, ZOR, where people will just shut down and won't tell you the truth. You're taught to lie to salespeople anyway. But when you ask that question at the start of any sales meeting, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Is that okay? And you explain why you're going to ask the questions. I always say, look, to get to the crux of the problem, we are going to need to ask you a lot of questions. Is that all right? What you're doing is you're asking for permission. If someone agrees that you can ask those questions, and they can't get angry as it later on. And I never forget when I first cold called you, and I said something on. I said it 30 times yesterday. It's a sales call. No, it's a prospecting call. Do you want to hang up or let me have 30 seconds? I'll make a bit of a joke out of it. And you're asking for permission to go. Whereas a lot of people will just push their own agenda and they'll say, do you know what? I'm just going to rabbit on at you. So once you've asked for that permission, you can ask effectively what you want. And I think you can honestly ask anything as long as you ask it in the right way. If you've got a question that's a humdinger, tell them this question's a humdinger. You're not going to like it. Can I ask it? They always say yes, right? Always. And then you ask the question, they never get annoyed, right? Because you've asked that permission. And that's what we call a communication technique.
So how do you make people more comfortable with these, other than just from the onset say, I'm going to ask some questions?
Permission to proceed on anything.
Mhm.
Um, asking is it okay to ask a bunch of questions? That's usually my first and foremost.
Mhm.
This one makes people laugh all of the time. And I will generally say something at the start of a sales meeting, which will go, um, Mr. Prospect and Mrs. Prospect, whichever it's going to be. At the end of this meeting, there's going to be one of three outcomes because there's only ever one of three outcomes, right? One of those outcomes is you're allowed to tell me no. If we get to the end of this hour-long call and you're happy telling me no, are you okay doing that today? And they're like, okay, yeah, that's fine, fine doing that. And then I usually say, one of the outcomes is that I don't think I can help you. If I don't think I can help you, you're okay if I tell you no, is that right? And they'll say, yeah, yeah, sure. And then I'll say the next thing is if we don't say no to each other, the only thing that we can do is organize a next step. And is that okay if we get to the end of the meeting and you don't want to say no and I don't want to say no, are we okay organizing a next step, spending a few minutes organizing a next step? And they'll say yes. Those four questions make someone feel incredibly comfortable
Mm.
because they know that the salesperson is okay hearing no. And a salesperson should be okay hearing no. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get it. It's you can't convert everyone. You don't want to convert everyone. I don't want to work with everyone. I took a sales call yesterday. In the first 2 minutes, I thought I can't work with this prospect. I went. He sounds like a good person, but some of the language he was using just wasn't right. And yeah, you've got to be comfortable getting there. And prospects then are more likely to open up.
Mm. I've heard the saying, the more no's you hear, or every no gets you one step closer to a yes.
Exactly right. You can, and there's people that count no's, right? You can, if you're sat there and you're calling 50 people and you're counting no's, by the time you get to the 10th no, you might get another yes.
Mm.
And there's even a book called Go for No, right? And so most people are always going for the yes, but if you go for no, you're more likely to get there.
Mm.
Now, on top of that, once you've gone through that process, another good thing to be doing is to A, going through pricing, right? Don't be scared to go for your pricing. The psychology behind that is Once you've gone through your pricing at the start of the meeting, they're not going to ask for a discount because you're so comfortable with it. They know they're not going to get anywhere. Um, Also giving them reasons not to go ahead. Right? So many people forget to do this, and it leaves them in a pickle when it gets into a sales call.
Mm, mm.
Giving the prospect reasons not to go ahead shows that you don't need them. It shows that you're not needy, and it shows you that you can pick and choose who you work with. But also, I don't know if you've ever heard the theory: every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I can't remember what it is now. And when you're giving someone the option to go no, all they're going to do is fight back and give you the reasons why they want to go ahead. And it's that IKEA kind of thing again. They're building their own case in their own mind for a reason why they think this is a good idea.
Oh, mate, that's brilliant. Yes, I actually have heard that. Yep.
Mhm.
Ultimately, the sales call needs to be about the client selling to you
They
why
come,
they
they come
need.
into you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The client is selling to you as to why they need your service. Now, we've got the internet these days. Internet is all the information that you need. So a lot of people, when they're engaging with you on a sales call, generally more often than not, they're already aware, right? Especially if they already make it's an inbound call. So it's a call that's coming into you, right?
Yep.
I guess if it's an outbound call, you're trying to provide the information as early on as possible, right? So people can make that informed decision. And then once they continue to engage, then it's more, yep, they see that this is something that is potentially helpful to them, and they're ultimately convincing themselves, yes, that this I actually do need this, or they're becoming more informed as to why they need this product.
There's a saying from an American author, I forget this guy's name as well, but if you can get your head around this, and one of the key fundamentals of sales is a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And what it means is that anyone can convince you of anything in any one moment, but as soon as you sober up from that conversation, you're not actually convinced, are you? You're actually still thinking your own thoughts. So the only person that can convince someone to do something is themselves. So your job as a salesperson is to get them thinking in a different way that they haven't thought before and get them convincing themselves.
Hmm.
Um, and website builders, right? This is something that I could talk about for ages. People that build websites. People will quite often contact web developers and say, "I want a new website," and the web builder will just build it, right? It doesn't ask too many questions. But if you actually dig into what they actually want, the main reason people want a website is for presence, but also really what it comes down to is sales. What's going to get you more sales, let's be honest, a website or actually maybe pick up the phone and do some cold calling? So if you ask the question of what you're looking to achieve, why you're looking to achieve it, and go down that path with them, you actually realize the website 99% of the time won't actually do anything. And they've wasted 5 grand on this website. And I don't think websites are useless, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that question needs to happen.
You need about 7 touch points from what I heard before someone becomes a client. I can't remember where I heard this. So it might be, say, social media stuff. It might be a sales call. It might be an email. It might be they might have heard from a friend. It might be your website. So all these little bits and pieces, right? Up to you. You might send out a carrier pigeon. Who knows? But ultimately, they need to experience you, and they see that there's consistency and helps them to take the next step. That's my understanding. Is that right?
I have some strong views on this, and I'm very one-dimensional with my approach. We live in a world, right, where sales jobs are given to the younger people, the younger generations, right? These younger generations have been brought up on instant messaging, email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, right? But they've always got a phone in their hands. They'll never ever press the phone button. Right? They'll do all these different things, right? To try and get in front of prospects or to try and get in front of businesses without actually doing the one thing that really, really works. Why? Because I've cold called my whole life and has made myself a fairly decent living. Um, Do I enjoy it? No. Um, but you have to do it. There's all parts of our jobs that we don't enjoy, right? You can ask a surgeon that, there's parts of their job they probably don't enjoy. Um, so my thought is you don't need 7, 8, 15, 20. You don't need these long processes. What you need to do is just count conversations. If you have enough decent conversations, you'll get to where you need to be. Um, People don't like making cold calls, not because they're scared of the phones. That's all a lie. It's not because of rejection, fear of rejection. That's another lie. They do it because they're scared of how it makes them feel, right? And what it makes them feel is makes them feel embarrassed because their mummy told them never to speak to strangers or ask tough questions or speak about money. So as soon as they're 18 years old and they're asked to call these people, they shy away from it and rather spend their time liking posts on LinkedIn thinking that's going to get them paid. So my approach is get on the phone, count conversations, see what problems these people have, communicate them in a certain way, see if they resonate in their world. If they don't, ask them a few more questions and get rid of them. Or if they do resonate, you book a meeting. Um, or you go to the next step. It doesn't always have to be a meeting, right? Sometimes there's a bit of different work that gets done there. And really, I don't see this whole 7, 8 point thing. I think that's taught by sales trainers that sold 20 years ago. And I think really that is the fundamental of sales. Count conversations. Don't sit there and send emails. Don't sit there and be on LinkedIn. Don't sit there liking stuff, right? Social selling, that's marketing, right? Get there, get a phone, learn how to make cold calls, and your life, yeah, it's not an enjoyable thing to do sometimes, but your life will become a lot easier.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that perspective. I think, yeah, that gives a new insight into having human conversations. At the end of the day, have a conversation. You might need to you might need to have more conversations, but at the end of the day, it's more direct, right? And it will give you the answers that you actually need instead of, oh, did the person check the email? Did they not check the email? Did it go through? What's happening with, do they have internet? Do they not, various little bits and pieces. Are they busy or not busy and whatnot? But I do also think that there's a very strong connection. You've already touched upon it before between sales and marketing. And I think sales gets easier if marketing does its job because marketing is to communicate what the aspects of fear are and what the aspects of pleasure are, right? To communicate to the client how a particular product or service is going to help them. And I believe, and again, you provide more on this. The sales is to ultimately decide if that person needs that particular product or service, if that particular product or service is ideal for that particular person.
Marketer's job is to communicate when it's to get people in front of you, right? Get people in front of salespeople, and to
Yeah.
do that, they need to communicate a message, and that message needs to be purely centered around what is an ideal prospect feeling before they call a salesperson or
Mm,
before they
mm.
speak to a set company. Think an easiest way to explain this is if you think of a travel agent, right? Travel agents aren't used as much anymore, but people got access to the internet, etc. Let's not go into that. If you look at the average travel agent and the way that operates, every single sales call will start the same. I was looking to book a holiday to this. Do you know if I should use this hotel or that hotel or this one's slightly? Or can you give me a better deal? Right? So when you're doing your marketing as a travel agent, don't talk about all the awards that are fake awards you've won because most of them are fake or made up, in my opinion. I have some strong opinions about that, and the accounting industry is full of them as well. I know I'm going to upset a few people with that as well. Talk about those problems and those feelings. Why? How are they confused? What are the different rates that can be offered, and all those sort of things. Um, why is it a minefield of information there? Do you need some professional guidance or some people that have actually been to the destination, etc., etc.? And I think that's what a lot of people will generally go wrong with marketing. They talk about themselves, they talk about the awards they've won, they talk about their founders' history, they talk about their mission values. You see it all over the internet, and accounting websites are probably some of the worst for it. Sorry, Mina. Um, and
That,
it doesn't need to be like that. Everything should be done in the shape of your ideal customer.
I love that. I love that. The customer is at the center of everything that we do.
Yeah.
What their needs and their wants. Mate, can a salesperson be a good leader, we're talking about the risk profile again. Going from dominant to influential to, I guess, feeling, compliance.
Gonna show some of this to people that I've managed in the past, and they're probably going to laugh. A salesperson can become a good leader, and I'm probably going to flip the question a bit back around because what generally happens within an organization is the best salesperson becomes a sales team leader with no training. Like what goes on next, it's just you know how to sell the best. They could be the best at taking orders for all we know. They don't actually, no one actually knows, and you get put into a sales management position. What then will generally happen is a huge amount of pressure will go onto that sales team leader because guess what? Quotas just dropped by 40%. And the reason it's dropped by 40% is because you're taking the best person off the phones. They've taken them off the tools and they've got to grow and build this team. Quite a lot of salespeople don't know why they're good. And this took me a while to figure out myself. I've always been very charismatic. I've always been very outgoing, but it took me a while to figure out why I did worked. And I still improve on it every day. I still take sales courses. I took one 2 weeks ago, and a private tuition course with a UK-based sales trainer. So, and because they don't know why they do works, they just try and fluff their way into leading a team. And what they then hide behind is because they don't actually know how to coach or communicate or know why they're good, is they'll hide behind dashboards. They'll hide behind these dashboards of you've got to make X amount of dials, you've got to have X amount of meetings, you've got to do all these demos, and all of it's meaningless. It's completely meaningless. Because if you're communicating stuff in a stupid way, you're never going to get anywhere.
Mm, mm.
So that's
So,
a big issue that you see. And I know I've not really answered your question. I've gone on a bit of a rant.
yeah.
But
So would they need to change something like what would they need to change in their communicating? Because again, they're going to be very, very dominant, right? And that dominance can sometimes be, I guess, not really nurturing for a team environment.
they need to figure out why they got good at what they're doing. If they did, some people just get good. And I've done this. I thought I was an amazing salesperson 5 years ago, but realistically, I was just taking a bunch of orders. Right? It only took one sales meeting that went sour to think, actually, I'm not very good at this. And I then went and got help. I'll tell that story in a minute. It's quite a funny story. And so with leadership, you need to figure out why you got good. You can't
Mm,
figure out why you've got good, then you can't communicate it in a certain way. What one thing I learned in a very, very harsh way is you cannot teach someone to be you. I'm a very quick thinker. I can think on my feet. Some people can't do that. I can ask tough questions. I can make people feel quite comfortable. I like to think so anyway. And that's what other people have sort of said. But teaching other people to act and behave like you in a high pressure situation, because sales is high pressure, is very, 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 very difficult.
mm,
And that's something that was a very harsh truth for me and what I figured out over the space of leading my last team, which I led for 12 months, probably a bit longer actually. And yeah, so can salespeople become decent leaders? They can. It's a completely different skill set. It's you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. You have to think about why you've got good. You have to think about what you're looking for, and you have to think about the fact that whoever you hire or whoever you're in charge of isn't you. So if
mm,
you're really good at something and they're not, you have to figure out a way with them to get good.
mm,
And that might not be your way. They might have to figure out their own different way.
mm,
It might, I know with my cold calling techniques, for example, not everyone's comfortable with calling a complete stranger and telling them it's a cold call and they can smash the phone or throw the phone at the window or whatever joke I tell. I think I said something to someone yesterday. I said, "Do you want to block my number?" And not everyone's comfortable with that, right? And I didn't think that was always going to be the case when I went into leadership. So they had to come up with their own way. And I couldn't necessarily tell them what that way was. I had to help facilitate that.
mm. I think you can set up some uh, procedures, right, to help maybe sales call, but I think you've got to develop that personality where you're actually getting friendly and you're almost like a best friend to the person. But at the end of the day, you are their advisor and you're trying to find out whether this particular product or service is suited to them. I love how you ask them, do you want to block my number? That's freaking hilarious, mate. So
Even if you,
did they end up blocking you or not?
we spoke on the phone for 8.5 minutes,
Is that
and
a good thing?
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because all we're trying to do is open up a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And did we go any further? We decided it wasn't for us mutually.
Yep.
But
Yep.
there's other ones where it has worked, and it's not all about getting that meeting. All it is just working out if it's the right service for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's is the right thing for the person. That's what it's about. Yeah. Fantastic.
I had someone stop me yesterday who was actually an ex-financial planner, turned accountant. Really odd thing to do. Like, not don't meet many financial planners that turn accountant. You get plenty the other way, but not so much financial planner to accountant, right? And he stopped me. He goes, "Lee, you sound bloody brilliant." And why? Because everything I said was centered around him. It wasn't. I work for the best financial planning firm in Sydney. I do this. I've got this much funds under management, or anything like that. It was more so. We work with accounting firms that experience one of the following issues. Do they exist in your world? Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
centered
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. And look, I love the way you communicate. You're very friendly. You ask questions, right? But they're open-ended questions, and you try to ascertain where the person is at and how you can help, which is fantastic, right? That's what I feel that more and more people, more salespeople need, or just generally in communication. That's what we need to do. Customer or client centered. Here's another one for you, mate. You ready for this one?
Yeah,
Can introverts become good salespeople?
I think a lot of extroverts fall into sales because of what I said earlier. And I actually think sometimes, actually quite often, that's to their detriment. So let's flip this round and we look at the extrovert that gets into sales. And this is me, because I know I can speak about myself. This was me. A lot of them seek to be liked and loved. They love being told they're good at what they do and getting the pat on the back. So they join sales and they get into sales, and all of a sudden they've got a job where someone's telling them they're great and they're telling them they're fantastic. I'm talking about prospects because prospects will tell you you're fantastic so they can bleed you for information. So all you end up doing is talking about how good you are and then trying to make friends with the prospect. And by the end of the sales meeting, you'll know everything about from their cat to their dog to their football team to the weather to everything else that's going on in their life. But you won't actually know much about their problems. You haven't sold anything. All you've done is just become really good friends with them. And that's actually comes to a lot of detriments of people that are extroverted. People that are introverted, where they're going to struggle with is having the ability to pick up the phone and get the meeting in the first place. But actually, once they're in meetings, they can be very, very good because what your job is to do is actually just to listen what the hell is going on. What is the problem that's in the prospect's head? Why does it exist? What have they done to solve it? And what questions can I ask to help them uncover it more? What does that actually mean on an emotional level? Like, are they about to get fired? Right, that's the sort of thing that you need to be uncovering. Or is the stock price about to plummet? Right, really big things that matter to the business. And I think once introverts are in meetings, they can become good salespeople because they can teach themselves to ask the questions. They can go on courses, they can watch YouTube videos, they can do podcasts, they can speak to me, and they can do that. So yes. So what actually needs to happen is extroverts, they need to come down a couple of notches, if not more, because they need to ask better questions. They need to become better listeners. They need to understand what they're doing rather than just seeking to be loved or liked. Introverts, they need to be a bit more dominant and high in influence, where they're influencing decisions, they're asking questions and then listening. So, yes, can accountants or can are there extroverted accountants? Can an accountant be an extrovert?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think an accountant can be an extrovert if they've got the mindset and they've got clear why. I think clear why. Clear why allows you, and I've touched upon it before, is to identify what is needed in a particular situation.
Yep.
Now, some accountants are just they're technicians that they don't want to do anything else other than complete a tax return or do something related to bookkeeping. They don't like people, and some people just don't like to be out and about. And I completely understand that. Some people are the opposite. They're extroverts. But sometimes it's something that I mentioned to a client actually today in a meeting. I said that sometimes introverts can be extroverted because the journey of life has shaped them to be so, right? Like someone might have a child and all of a sudden they think, oh my goodness, my boss isn't paying me enough to be able to sustain the family and what it is that we want to achieve. I've got to go out and get a job and start my own business. Now, they might be an introvert, but next minute, they are forced to learn all these skills and communicate with people and face their fears, step outside their comfort zone. And I think at the end of the day, if your why is clear, it will force you to do things and it will force you to continue to step outside your comfort zone. Now, what about extroverts? And it's something that you've touched upon before. You can be very strong in the extroverted side of things and tick off a lot of people. You could really, really make them angry. Why? Because sometimes I find when I sit down with extroverts, they'll tell me all about themselves and their achievements, and it's all about them. It's not about the other person. So they're not interesting. And apparently, to be interesting, you've got to be interested in people. That's what being charismatic is. It's about listening into people, understanding who they are, what's important to them, right? Learning about people. So I think extroverted people moving into sales and moving into business also need to learn that there is a skill set and they need to sometimes move more towards introversion. So
100%.
introverts, they need to move more towards extroversion, right? But everything within reason. I think you need to develop the skill set of understanding, ascertaining what's required at a particular situation and able to deliver what's required in a particular situation.
100%. Yeah, I can actually agree with that more. I'll tell you a bit of a story. I remember when I was in my previous role, and people are looking at my LinkedIn, and there's probably people that'll see this and know that what I'm talking about here, but we used to sell by demonstration. And effectively you'd beg, plead, and borrow for these people to try and come and sit in a demonstration. You'd call them up. Oh, it takes 15 minutes. Go on. Loads of accounting firms, selling to accountants, loads of accounting firms use us. And you'd go in and you'd show them for 15 minutes. You'd talk, 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 talk. At the end, you ask if they want to buy it. And I did this for maybe 6 months or so. And I was like, this isn't right. I was still making sales because I was taking loads of orders, but I didn't know what I was doing or what the hell I was even solving. And I started actually just asking questions. No one even told me to do this. I just came up with my own accord, and I don't know even how I came up with them. I just started asking loads of questions. And I got really interested into what actually was going on with these people that I was selling to. And Christ, did sales rise after that. And then I started to seek assistance and started to pay for my own assistance and my own help. Which, if you work in sales and you're a salesperson, listen to this, do that. It's almost every other industry has to do compulsory CPD. Salespeople should do too. And the sales just went through the roof, and I really understand what I was doing. So when I was next calling people, I wasn't just saying, "Hey, you know what? You got 15 minutes?" I'd say, we deal with people with these problems. I bet they don't exist for you. No, no, they do. And guess what happens? They turn up to the meeting. They're excited. They thank you. I was starting to think all these connotations that you get salespeople like we're pushing and all that, which I was. You don't actually have to exist. And I got an email 2 days ago from a prospect who I cold called. He actually started the call very on the back foot. He was very rough. He was asking me loads of questions. He was trying to insert dominance. And at the end of the call, he said, "Actually, that was bloody brilliant," and thanked me. And he sent an email saying thank you. I actually really look forward to seeing you in September. So yeah, I think salespeople have to learn to not talk about themselves, not be extroverted, ask questions, and actually listen to the answers, not just push questions for your own agenda, and find out where someone is. And when you actually start helping someone, the money will flow in. That's really the basics of it.
Yeah. Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. We've discussed so many things, so many interesting uh, stories, and I think when people watch this session, they're going to have even more questions. So I think we need to do like a part two.
Yeah,
Hey
no,
Lee, what do you reckon?
100%. I've got some ideas for this.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved it, mate. It helped me reinforce some things, but also made me think about various things that I didn't think about before. So it's everyone wins when we have these conversations. Um, so thank you very much again for being with us. How do people reach out to you?
Um, Always going to leave my phone number. So if you want to have a chat, always use to have the phone. That could be in regards to sales. It could be regards into financial advice clients. It could be regards to your client base. I think that's something we'll touch on next.
Yep.
Um, I'll pop my phone number in the comment section. I'll give a link to it, and I'll do my email as well. And I
Okay.
think yeah, I'll touch upon that next time as well.
Okay. Done. If you want, we can even put it on the screen.
Yep.
Right. I've got it. Just confirm it's the right one.
Yep.
Okay. All right,
0271
mate.
0406.
I didn't hear that.
The one that ends in 0406.
Once more, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. We'll see
All
you
good,
soon,
mate.
Lee.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Bye.
See everyone. Bye bye.